Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Ladies and gentlemen, we are almost complete with our U.S. Army factual index infographic. It's looking great so far. I hope you're having fun with the program. Sometimes it can be a little frustrating because InDesign can be a little quirky with its frames, but once you get the hang of it, it's just going to be a phenomenal program to do layout and design. And again, it can be for magazines and brochures, anything with like multiple pages. We're just working on a single page. So I'm so excited. Let's just go ahead and get right into it. Let's do chapter 5, and this is going to cover pretty much everything else. All right, so back in the lab here, back in the InDesign lab. So here's where we left off, and we're going to do a couple of tweaks to this soldier quick facts before we move on to our pie chart, which is going to be our data viz element for this infographic. Now, if you remember, when you have the regular selection tool active and you click, hold, and drag, you see that rectangular marquee. When you go over certain objects, it could be text, it could be images, it could be shapes, but you drag a box essentially over all the things that you want to multi-select. And what that's going to do is it's going to select everything that was in that marquee right there. The reason why I just selected all those bits of information right there is because I'm just going to click the up arrow a few times on my keyboard. I'm just going to move this up just a couple of nudges to give myself a little bit of room down here because I have a really cool piece of information that we're going to finish this thing off with. So I just moved everything up just a couple of clicks, and I did it using that multi-select because our layers are unlocked and it allows me to select multiple items. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to deselect everything by clicking in the gray. I'm going to select this big rectangle that we have here, and I'm going to slightly move this up, and I'm just dragging that bottom anchor point, and this color box right here is going to kind of match the soldier's boot right here, the top of the boot. Just to clean it up just a little bit. Now, I'm not a huge fan of this green personally. You might have a different color. I'm actually going to change that rectangle to a different one of my sample colors because I'm not a huge fan of that light green. So I'm going to change it to match the subtitle rectangle here. And I'm going to use that kind of lighter shade of brown. Yeah, this just for me matches my project a little bit better. For you, it could be totally different. That's just one of the best things about this program is that you can customize over and over and over again. The only thing I'm going to have to do is because slightly a darker shade of brown is just I'm going to change my font colors to paper or just white. Again, paper is just what is pure white in this program. And just to give a little bit of contrast there. I kind of like that just a hair better. All right. So once we got that done, what we're going to do now is this section down here, what we're going to do is we're going to add a data visualization element. And a data visualization element is something like a pie chart, a column chart, could even be a line chart. Anything that's like a graph or a chart, even a map, is what is known as a data visualization. So I'm going to open up my file browser. And this is my normal file browser. This is not the file place in InDesign. And I'm going to look for an Illustrator file. And the Illustrator file is going to be called pie chart. I'm going to double click on this, and that's going to launch my Adobe Illustrator. And again, that's going to be pie chart. There's no PNG for this one. It is just an Illustrator file. And I'll let you have a few seconds to load up the Illustrator. Now, what I already did for this demonstration was build a pie chart for us for this specific purpose. I actually created this pie chart, believe it or not, in Illustrator's hidden tools. In Illustrator, it's a tool that looks like a column chart, and essentially this one right here allows you to create cool data visualization elements that are vectors. That pie chart that you're opening up right now is a vector, and you can actually create a vector chart inside of Illustrator. It's one of the best hidden tools or tips and tricks that possibly can go along with the program. I have a whole video dedicated to show you how to create them if you're interested in that. But if you have your Illustrator launched, it looks just like this. And that you'll notice a couple of things. The Illustrator interface, if this is your first time in here, looks very, very similar to InDesign. Now you can see here's our different breakdown of active duty Army, National Guard, and Reserve. And this is just showing like the personnel on, you know, how much percentage makes up the whole when it comes to the whole US Army. Now what's cool about this pie chart, if you have your regular selection tool, again, it's the same thing as InDesign. And if you click on a pie slice, you can change the color to whatever you want to change it to. So maybe this 47% right here, I clicked on it. Notice how it selects this piece of the pie. I can go ahead and customize this by double clicking the fill swatch and maybe choosing a different color. I'll just choose something so it's noticeable here and see how it's changing. So you can go ahead and customize this pie chart to any color that your heart desires that fits your project. And you can also even color customize these little legend pieces right here that correlate with the percentages of the pie. And if you want, you could even change the font for the text of the legend. But I'm going to hit Control and Z, Control Z. I kind of like the color scheme I already pre-picked out here. Yours should look something very similar as well. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to incorporate this into our InDesign file. So pretend that you made a totally custom data visualization. You customize the colors, the shapes, the text, everything. You don't have to save this as a JPEG or a PNG. What you can do is you can actually copy this whole pie chart and paste it into InDesign, and it's going to retain its vector, and it's going to retain all the colors and customizations that you've made. So let me show you how it's done. So I'm going to be in my regular selection tool. I'm going to click, hold, and drag that marquee box. And again, when I drag over all the elements, that's going to multi-select everything. I'm going to hit Control and C to copy. And I'm going to jump back into InDesign. And I'm going to hit Control and V. And what that's going to do, give it a second here, look at that. What it just did was add it by copying and pasting. So I didn't actually export it. I didn't even place the Illustrator file. I just did a copy and paste, and it retained everything. This little dotted line here represents that this is a vector element. And what's cool about this is that I can actually like change the size of it. So I can hold down Shift, go in the diagonal anchor point here, bring it down a little bit if I need to shrink it a little bit or expand it. It's kind of separate from a frame because it's a vector element inside of a raster program, if that makes sense. But it gives you flexibility to make fully customized elements for an infographic in this case. But the same concept would work if you're making, say, a multiple page pamphlet. So I'm going to make this pie chart after I pasted it a little bit smaller because this guy is going to go right here. It's going to go right here. Oops. Another thing to point out is that because we have multiple elements here, we have multiple elements, and when you select it, it's going to move everything synonymously, which is really fantastic. So you don't have to individually move the legend, the pieces of the pie, the text. It does it in a group because it is a vector object. And I'm going to place it so the pie chart's hanging off a little bit, but the majority is up here underneath this bit of information. And look at that. That looks fantastic. And again, that's just a data visualization that supports the quick facts, this little box right here. The whole thing is doing the research for these infographics and then putting those researched elements and items with interesting visual elements to essentially tell your story or to describe your topic. In this case, we're talking about facts about the US Army. Nice. Now, the one thing I want to do is I want to take this data visualization element and I want to actually put this, notice when I have it selected here, right? It's actually represented by this group right here because it's grouped together. It's a grouped vector object. And what I can do is I can move this entire group and I can move it up to database just to keep it separated. And anytime you have something selected, so let's say I select a soldier here, what InDesign is going to do is very similar to Illustrator. It's going to have a little highlighted box to show you where that element is in your layers panel. So you can see, oh, it looks like it's in the images. I dropped it down and I can see it's soldier.png right here. Notice how it's highlighted. And that's kind of how Illustrator and InDesign work. That's what a target selection, and it just shows you what is selected by a color box. Sweet. Okay, so once we have this done, what we're going to do is add our final bit of information. It's a little snippet of an article, and we're going to also add a QR code to go along with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to start out with another text area box. So let's grab our type tool. And I want you to make this is going to be another subheadline. I want you to make another box about yay big that touches the right margin here. And what this is going to do is going to house our title or subtitle for this snippet of an article. And I'm going to go back into my data sheet here. And the subtitle for this one is Oldest Active Duty Infantry Unit. It's kind of like a did you know? Kind of to give your audience something to remember, something interesting, a high interesting fact. I'm going to copy this right here. And the font, you probably already guessed, is going to be our Century Gothic. Bold. And let me just triple check. Yes, it was 20 points in size. So Century Gothic Bold 20 is going to be our font size. And I'm going to go ahead and Control Victory, paste it in there. There we have it. Now I'm going to clean up some of the dead space by switching to my selection tool, regular selection tool. And just going to kind of close in some of that dead space gap right there. And what I'm even going to do is I'm going to triple click my text and go to my nice center align. And let's fill this rectangle, this just regular text area with a color. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure that this is selected, which it already is. And when you don't have text selected and you just have the frame of the text selected, what you can do is change the fill, so the background. So I'm going to add a sampled color. I'm going to do this lighter shade of brown. Well, maybe I'll use the green this time because I didn't use it last time. I'm going to use it for this one. But once you add a color to your text, what you're going to notice is that you have your text writing the line. So we'll give it a little bit of that inset spacing. And just to refresh your memory, it's Control and Bravo. That brings up our text frame options. And I'm just going to give it just a click up. So a 0.0625 all around, hit OK, just to give it some of that padding. Very cool. It's looking good so far. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to add another text area that's going to be underneath. So I'm going to grab my type tool once again. And for this box, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click, hold, and drag approximately to where the left margin of this Soldier Quickbacks box was. You know what? This is a great time to use guides. So we have our rulers already toggled. If you don't have your rulers toggled, it's Control and Romeo, Control R. See, my rulers are on, off, on, off. What I can do is I can drag a guide. I'm going to go to my y-axis, my vertical ruler right here. I'm going to click, hold, and drag a line. And this line right here, I'm going to match it to the left margin of where the Soldier Quickbacks rectangle actually is and begins, to kind of give myself a visual guide. So guides kind of work the same way as in like Photoshop or even Illustrator. It's kind of the same thing, even Premiere. It's just a visual guide that's going to give you some reference point of where to place objects. And you can do horizontal guides, you can do vertical guides. But what's interesting about InDesign specifically, I added this guide right here. If I look at my layers panel and I look at notice the reason why the line is red is because my images is actually the selection right now. So kind of interesting. So if I was on my text layers, it would be a blue guide instead. But either way, just wanted to create a guide because what we're going to do is this text type tool right here. I'm going to make another box that touches that guide. And I'm going to make it kind of large to touch the right margin right there. Something like that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to jump back to our data sheet here. And this high interesting fact is going to start, it's going to start with the oldest active duty infantry unit. So I'm going to go ahead and take that text. I'm going to copy it. And the font for this one is going to be Myriad Pro. So we'll select our Myriad. Pro regular. Size is going to be 14 points. Myriad Pro regular, 14 point, and I'm going to go ahead and paste it on it. Now, we're going to do something a little bit interesting and unique. Remember all the way at the beginning of the demo, we talked about columns, how you can break up an entire page with like 2, 3, 4 columns. We're going to do the same thing, but just in this little article snippet here. So what we're going to do is we're going to hold down Control. We're going to hit B, as in Bravo, pretend you're adding like inset spacing. But instead of inset spacing, check out the top option here, columns. So right now, by default, it's always going to be 1. I want to add 2 columns. So I'm going to click on the up arrow right here one time to have a 2. I'm going to leave the gutter with the default spacing. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hit my preview just to show you what's going on under the hood. And notice what it's doing. It's taking the text and it's actually breaking it up into 2 columns. So I'm going to hit the number 2 here. And I'm going to click on OK. Now it's a little bit funky. And check this out. I'm gonna go ahead and jump to my regular selection tool, and I'm going to actually make the box a little bit, or the frame a little bit smaller. So I'll take this bottom anchor and move it up a little bit. And notice how it's spilling the text over to the next column. See that? And what I want you to do is make it something like this, because what we're going to do is we're essentially going to add a QR code in the bottom right here. So something like this works totally fine. I'm going to actually go ahead and triple click all the text so it selects everything. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to my paragraph panel, and I'm going to uncheck hyphenate, get rid of those nasty hyphenations. And I'm actually going to jump back into the regular selection tool. And with this frame selected, I'm just going to click a couple of down arrows on my keyboard just to give it a little bit of space here. Something like this. Now, there's a official logo or unit crest that goes along with this, and we're going to add it to the little right portion right here. Or should I say the left portion, because we have a little bit of space here, and I have the official insignia that belongs with this information. Again, everything makes sense because it's researched prior to building. So let's go ahead and grab that insignia. So this is good. I like this. Let's go up to File. Let's go to Place. And the image that we're going to grab for this one is going to be, there it is, Old Guard logo. So I'm going to go ahead and hit open on this. Whoops. And this is another common factor. When you have a frame selected, say text, and you place an image with that frame selected, what it's going to do is it's going to add an image to that existing frame. This is why I always usually click in the gray space to deselect everything when working in this program. And you can see the Old Guard logo here replace the text because I had that frame selected. It's very, very common. But don't freak out. You don't even have to do anything. You don't have to redo that text box. All you have to do is hit Control and Z. And what that's going to do is give you that loaded cursor and then bring back your original element that was inside the frame. Live troubleshooting. Love it, ladies and gents. Okay, so here's our Old Guard logo. And what you're going to do is you're going to click, hold, and drag in that space that we had to the left of the subtitle for that article snippet. And there we have it. Now, remember the text wrap options, right? So this Old Guard logo right here, I just selected it. What I can do is I can add a text wrap to it at any time by looking at that context menu, add a little text wrap. So this is going to wrap around the bounding box of the object. And I'm going to actually just bring it down a little bit. And see that? I can actually put this logo, move the text around it to be a little bit more creative, just to kind of like fit the space. And interesting fact about the text wrap is this right here is different options that you can do for the text wrap. But let's say that you need like custom spacing instead of like the default text wrap. There is a text wrap panel that will allow you to control the amount of space that objects and elements move around your text wrapped element. And the way to get there is going to be Window. There's an option for just text wrap. Control Alt and W. Text wrap. So you can see this is selected. And because I clicked this button up here, notice how it is also selected here, because this is the text wrap option that I selected. Now, what this does right here, these little lines, top, bottom, left, and right, these actually allow you to control the amount of space that your element has a text wrap. So if I actually click a couple times on the down arrow, notice how it's actually changing the parameters of the text wrap. I can expand it out to give myself more padding around the object, in this case, the Old Guard logo, or give it less space. So this is very handy, especially if you need to make a custom adjustment for your text. So in this case, I'm doing a negative. So it's not a lot of space that's going to be wrapped around. And this will allow me to move the object to where I want it and get the text nice and orderly. So it gives you like infinite control. And by the way, you can type in whatever number you want. These are just the pre-selects when you hit the up and down arrow, but you can type in a custom number, a custom inch. If you're working at pixels, a custom pixel number. Just gives you that flexibility. And these come in handy, especially if you're building like magazines and you have things like drop caps. But I'm kind of happy with what this looks like. What I'm going to do is just dock this text wrap panel by clicking the tab, and then moving it underneath paragraph. So in case I need to come back to this, again, these panels are customizable on how you want them to display, pop out. Think of them like quick commands. But I'm kind of liking, I'm digging this. Might move and adjust it a little bit. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we are going to add the last bit of text here. And it is the one that says scan QR code to learn more. Copy this. And I'm going to double click where the period is that ends this little snippet right here. I'm going to hit return. I'm going to hit it 2 times. I'm just going to paste that text in there. Now this text is going to be the same font, so it's going to be Myriad Pro Regular. So I'm just going to quickly change this. Sorry, Minion. Myriad Pro Regular, and the font size for this is going to be a 10. So it's just a little bit smaller because this is going to be just a, hey, scan this QR code to learn more about this, and it takes you to the actual website that someone can read more about this information. Okay, so I kind of like how this is looking right here. And again, if you need to make an adjustment for your subtitle, you can do that. Your logo, your text, but I'm going to leave it right here for now. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that my regular selection tool is my tool. I'm going to click in the gray space this time. If I make a QR code and I have my text frame selected, it's going to replace all that text with the QR code, just like it did with the logo. So best practice, just to keep things easy, is just to deselect by clicking in the gray. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go up to Object. And I want to show you one of the best hidden secrets in this program, and that's going to be able to generate a functional QR code right from the program. So if you go up to Object here, you can actually see an option here that says Generate QR Code. I know minds are going to explode right now. You don't need to go on the web and just use one of those random websites or tools that say, hey, sign up for this. Right? No, Generate QR Code. Let's click on that. And what that's going to do is it's going to pull up this right here. Now, there's many things that you can actually use a QR code for. It's just kind of a reference visual data in the form of barcode almost, but it's in a square, and it's going to take a cell phone or a tablet, something with a camera that can scan an image, and then redirect it to like a hyperlink or say even just text or any kind of other information. In this case, it's a web page. So let's bring down the type here and let's toggle to web hyperlink. And notice it gives you a place to put the URL in. So I'm going to jump back to my data sheet. And here's the QR code website. So it's actually coming from army.mil. So it's an official source. And I'm going to grab this entire hyperlink here. I'm going to copy it. And I'm going to jump back to InDesign. I'm going to paste it in that URL right there. It's important, especially if you're making like a official infographic, to make sure that you're taking your audience to like an official source. So usually a .gov or a .mil. In this case, it's army.mil. And this web page right here goes along with this bit of information. Now, once you have that URL plugged in, you're going to click on OK. Look at that. It loads the cursor up with a QR code. So what we'll do now is we're going to click, hold, and drag a box. Let's make it a little bit bigger. So this way, for phones, it's a little easier to capture. So something just like that. And what we'll do is we'll also add a text wrap to our QR code element right here. So this way that scan QR code to learn more isn't underneath, it can wrap around it. So I'll just use the quick button up here and do a wrap around bounding box. And maybe I might just do an adjustment or two just to make it nice and flush. There we go. I like it. And of course, if you wanted to move this around to where you want to put it, that's up to you. I'm just going to put it in the bottommost part of the margin and the rightmost part of the margin, all the way bottom right there. Very cool. All right, so you can even try this out. When you preview your infographic, and that's W, you can actually test to see if that QR code works, and it should. So very fast, easy way to add a QR code element inside of your infographic. Kind of like think of it as a call to action. The audience can learn more about going to that link. All right, so I'm going to hit Control and 0 real quick. Take a look at what we made here. This, ladies and gentlemen, is what a factual index infographic is all about. We have interesting bits of information that has emphasis. We have information that goes along with the topic. We even have a did you know, as well as a high interesting fact. All of these different elements combine to describe U.S. Army quick facts, or just facts about the U.S. Army. And that is what an infographic is designed to do. So when you're doing your research for whatever topic that you're making an infographic for, you kind of want to take the most prominent or relevant, interesting parts of, say, an article or a research paper, take the key elements away from it, and then that's what you incorporate to your infographic. Because at the end of the day, you're not making a book. You are just making a visual product that's going to give your audience something to easily digest, understand. But there's one other thing that we have to do before we wrap this show up, and that is going to be adding a sources text box, because all these images, all this information comes from a certain reference point, and we want to make sure that we put that inside of our infographic, especially if it's an official product. So we have a little bit of space underneath this high interesting fact and the bottom margin here. So we're going to create another text box, and I'm going to create another little box that's going to touch the bottom margin, and we'll even let it touch the QR code as well, because I have official sources for this infographic. If we go to the data sheet, there's one last bit that says sources here. I'm going to grab this. I'm going to copy it. And the font for this guy is going to be a little bit smaller. So it's going to be, we're going to stick with Minion Pro for this one. So kind of like InDesign's default font, but we're going to make it a small size. So only 8 points. Your sources or your references don't have to be really large. They can be rather small. So 8 point, 7 point, 6 point, that's fine. And I'm going to paste it in. And I may want to do an adjustment on this just so it's not touching the high interesting fact text. So maybe just bring it down a little bit. So you can see this is where I got all the information. Got it from army.mil, legion.org, militarybyowner.com, and then I have image assets. So all the images that we worked with, I got from either VectEasy or army.mil, or I created it in Illustrator, such as the pie graph. But this is the best way to list your sources. So information just goes under sources, and any image assets that you pull will also go image assets, and then you'll list them line by line. There we go. We got our sources now. And by the way, this is just a quick design note here. You don't have to list the entire URL. So army.mil/123/456.html, the whole URL, just put the domain name. So army.mil, that's where the information comes from. Legion.org. I'm not using all the individual web pages, the slash and the dashes. You don't need that. Just the main domain. Okay. And what I'm going to do now is just look at my layers panel and make any adjustments that you need to make when it comes to ordering your information and your images. So a QR code, believe it or not, is more or less a data visualization element. So I'm actually going to move the QR code to data viz. And I might take some of my text elements that were put in images here and then just move them down to the text parent layer. Just to keep everything nice and orderly. Always check out your layers panel. Okay, so one last thing. I'm going to collapse my layers panel. We have a little bit of space at the top right here. Notice where we have our main visual hook image. We have a little bit of space right here. I'm going to add a little bit of text in the form of the official U.S. Army motto, "This will defend," and I'm going to add that right to the right here. So I'm going to grab my text type tool once again and make a little box just with some of that negative space in that image. And I'm going to grab the "This will defend" motto here with the quotations. Now the font for this one is going to be Century Gothic, bold, 30 points. Ooh, not 230, 30 points. And then I'm going to paste it in. And I'm just going to do a little bit of an adjustment with my regular selection tool and the anchor points. Will defend. And I like that. And I'm just going to hold down Alt, hover over the text, click, hold, and drag to make a copy, release my mouse, release Alt, and I'm going to grab that last bit, established June 14th, 1775. Copy that, and I will paste it in. I believe this is going to be, yes. I'm going to triple click. The font for this one is Myriad Pro, bold. I believe it is a smaller size, 18 point. So Myriad Pro bold, 18 points. There we go. That looks a little better. And I'll just position this accordingly. Maybe I'll cant it to the right a little bit, something like that. And again, it's just a customization. It's just adding a little bit to this infographic because that's the official motto there. Kind of ties this whole theme in together. And just like that, what I like about this infographic, and I'm going to hit W on my keyboard, is that we have a cohesive look, good balancing. We have a color scheme that we sampled from our main visual hook element. We have a QR code to send our audience to learn more information about the topic. We have high interesting facts as well as legit tidbits of information that go along with the U.S. Army Fast Facts. And ladies and gents, this is what's known as a factual index infographic that is well executed and designed. So give yourself a round of applause. You have an excellent product here. Remember to hit Control S. And that should wrap this up. Okay. So with that said, oh, there's one last thing I almost forgot. The metadata, right? So before you say maybe export this or say save it and send it to someone, you want to have the proper metadata in there. So in the sources that you downloaded from the Google Drive, there is a caption example. And I'm just going to open that up just so you can see what that looks like. So the metadata is very similar to how Photoshops and Illustrators work. It's almost the exact same thing. It uses the IPTC core to embed. And here's the caption example. So for my military students and prior students, this is a proper caption for this infographic. The name. You give the name to the infographic. In this case, the name could be literally something like the U.S. Army. The U.S. Army infographic is a raster composite product for a student exercise at the Defense Information School on Fort George G. Meade, Maryland, and the date. And of course, you'll put the dates, whatever the date is that you finalize the product. Oh, what is today? Today is October 14th, 2025. So that's our first sentence right there. The exercise was conducted to demonstrate proficiency in research, development, and layout design using the Adobe InDesign software. It's exactly what we did. Now, for my military members, you're going to put U.S. your service, so U.S. Navy, U.S. Army, and you'll put that in here. Photo illustration, because that's what this is, by your rank AP style, first name and last name. And that's going to be in the parentheses. So just for an example here, just like that. Okay. Okay, so once you have that completed, what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and you're going to copy that caption. Okay. Sorry about that. You're going to copy that caption. And you're going to jump back to InDesign. What you're going to do is you're going to place it in the metadata for this, which you're going to find under File, and it's going to be File Info. The shortcut keyboard command is Shift, Alt, Control, and I. So it's the exact same thing like in Illustrator and Photoshop. It's File Info. Now, for caption, what you're going to do is you're going to place it in the description. So this is actually going to go in description right here. Okay. And when you hit OK, that's going to travel with the document. So let's say you export it as a PDF, you export it as a JPEG, it's going to travel along with that. You can also put the title, the author, that'd be you, the title, the document title. You can also put a few keywords and you're going to separate them by semicolon. So in this case, I would put something like Army semicolon. You could put infographic, even like a semicolon history. So just some keywords to describe your product. Again, this is all going to be embedded into the actual document itself. Okay, and even copyright status right here, public domain. And what you can do is hit OK, the bottom there, and then that's going to travel with the document. So regardless if you save it as a PDF, you just do a JPEG, a PNG even, or even save it to the web, it's going to travel with it. Now I'll hit my Control S to finalize everything. And a couple of things to know is that when you are finished with your infographic, just make sure that you have no errors, because if you do have errors, what you're going to have to do is find out where they are and fix them. Sometimes it could be a broken link. Sometimes it could just be overset text. So text that runs off the frame. So there's more text and it's not visible. But in this case, I have no errors. I'll make a tutorial video on how to fix errors in another video. And then finally, if I want to view the full resolution of this, I'll hit View. I'll go to Display Performance and go to High Quality Display, so you can get a full idea of how this thing is going to be looking like once you export it. And again, I usually work on the typical display, so it saves resources, so my InDesign doesn't crash on me. I like it. So that's that. I'm going to hit Control S. Okay, let's wrap this up. So if you've been following along, excellent work. The whole thing about the infographic is you want to ensure that you have your information prior to designing, because it's going to make it a lot easier in your workflow. When you build a infographic, regardless of the timelines, a factual index, or just a plain facts box, right? You want to make sure that you have your image elements, your research facts, and then of course, an idea of how you want to place everything. So it can be as simple as just putting a couple of facts in, or you can do something elaborate like we did for the demo, where we had icons, illustrations, QR code, and of course, a nice color scheme to go with the whole piece. But either way you slice it, I can't wait to see what you create. Please leave me any questions in the comments below, or feel free to directly message me. I look forward to hearing your comments, and I'll post additional videos, some tips and tricks on how to create really compelling visual elements for any type of project that you do inside of the InDesign program. I look forward to seeing you in the next one, and I'll see you soon.